Hello, my name is Giuseppe Ricci. I'm 52 years old, and what I'm about to tell you will completely change your understanding of reality itself. 10 years ago, on a rainy night in Milan, a young boy entered my taxi. He was soaking wet, clutching a blue backpack, and looked exactly like the photos I'd seen of Carlo Acutis. At first, I thought nothing of it, just another teenager needing a ride home. But when he looked at me and said, "Giuseppe, I know about your daughter Sophia's illness. On October 27th, she will be completely healed," my entire world shifted. I had never mentioned my daughter to him. I hadn't told anyone outside my immediate family about her diagnosis. No one in Milan knew her name was Sophia. No one knew she was dying, but somehow this boy knew everything. Brothers and sisters, what happened in the 43 minutes that followed inside my taxi that stormy night, and the miraculous events that occurred exactly as predicted, have haunted and blessed me for the past decade. And today, for the first time ever, I'm breaking my silence to share the full, unbelievable truth. And what I'm about to reveal now, what nobody knows, what I've kept silent for 10 years out of fear people would think I'd lost my mind, is something that will make you question everything you thought you knew about miracles, about time, about the boundary between life and death. Because this boy didn't just disappear from my taxi, he disappeared from existence itself. Yet everything he predicted came to pass exactly as he said. And if you're watching this video right now, it's not by accident. During our conversation, the boy told me someone like you would hear this story someday. Someone who desperately needs what this message contains. I'm so curious, where are you watching this from? Drop your country in the comments below and consider subscribing to Miraculous Encounters if you haven't already. Each week we share testimonies of extraordinary events that science cannot explain, stories that might forever change how you see the world. Are you ready to hear the truth? Are you ready to learn what really happened that night in my taxi? Because I warn you, after hearing this, your understanding of reality will never be the same. Mine certainly isn't. It was October 17th, 2013. Milan was being drenched by the worst thunderstorm we'd seen in decades. Streets were flooding, power was flickering throughout the city, and most sensible people were safely indoors. As a taxi driver for 23 years, I'd seen all kinds of weather, but this night felt different. There was a heaviness in the air, an electric quality that went beyond the lightning crackling overhead. I'd been driving for 14 hours straight, picking up stranded commuters and tourists, and was about to head home when I saw him, a teenage boy standing alone at a bus stop near the Duomo, completely drenched, with no umbrella or raincoat. Something compelled me to pull over. Maybe it was pity or perhaps something more, a feeling I now recognize as divine intervention. The moment he entered my taxi, I noticed two things immediately. He was remarkably peaceful, despite being soaked to the bone, and he looked strikingly similar to photos I'd seen of Carlo Acutis, the young computer genius who had died of leukemia in 2006. My wife Marcella was deeply devoted to him and had his picture in our living room, praying daily for his intercession for our daughter. The resemblance was uncanny. The same gentle eyes, the same unruly hair, the same kind smile. But I dismissed it as coincidence. Many Italian teenagers look similar, I told myself. He couldn't have been more than 15 or 16 years old. "Where to?" I asked, watching him in the rearview mirror. He was calm, almost unnaturally so, given the ferocity of the storm outside. Water dripped from his hair onto his blue jacket, but he didn't seem to mind. His backpack sat beside him, emblazoned with a simple cross design. "Just drive, Signor Giuseppe," he replied softly. "I'll tell you when to stop." My blood ran cold. I had never introduced myself. My name wasn't visible anywhere in the taxi. Before I could ask how he knew me, he continued speaking, his voice serene, yet somehow penetrating over the drumming of rain on the roof. "You're worried about your daughter Sophia. The doctors gave her 3 months to live. The tumor in her brain is inoperable, they said. Your wife Marcella prays day and night for a miracle, but you stopped believing in miracles long ago. I nearly crashed the car, swerving sharply before regaining control. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white. It was impossible. We had told no one in Milan about Sophia's diagnosis. We had moved from Rome just 6 months earlier, specifically to seek treatment at a specialized clinic while keeping her condition private. Even our neighbors didn't know. My daughter's illness was our closely guarded heartache. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, my voice barely audible above the storm. "How could you possibly know these things?" The boy smiled gently. Not the smile of someone playing a trick, but a smile filled with compassion so deep it seemed ancient, completely at odds with his youthful face. "Who I am isn't important," and he said. "What matters is why I'm here. I came to tell you that Sophia will be healed completely on October 27th at 9:17 in the morning. The tumor that the doctors say is impossible to treat will vanish without a trace. But you need to be prepared, Giuseppe. You need to understand that this healing comes with a purpose." Lightning flashed, illuminating his face in brilliant white light. For a split second, he seemed to glow from within, as if the lightning weren't just reflecting off him, but emanating from him. I felt a chill run through my body that had nothing to do with my wet clothes or the rain battering the windows. "I don't understand," I said, struggling to process what was happening. "Are you saying you can heal my daughter? Are you a doctor, a researcher with some experimental treatment? How do you know these things about us?" The boy's expression remained calm, almost amused by my confusion. "I'm not a doctor, Giuseppe. I'm just a messenger. Your daughter's healing has already been written. I'm here to prepare you for it and to tell you what must happen afterward." I drove aimlessly through the flooded streets of Milan, no destination in mind, completely absorbed in this impossible conversation. The city lights blurred through the rain-streaked windows, creating halos and streaks of color that seemed otherworldly. In those moments, it felt like my taxi had somehow slipped outside of normal time and space, existing in some in-between place where the rules of reality were suspended. "Listen carefully," the boy continued, leaning forward slightly. "When Sophia is healed, you must tell her story. Not immediately, wait until exactly 10 years have passed. On October 27th, 2023, you will share this testimony with the world. You will tell people about what happened in this taxi tonight and about the miracle that saved your daughter, because your story will save others, Giuseppe. Your story will bring hope to people who have lost all hope. It will restore faith to those who have forgotten how to believe." If you're finding this story meaningful so far, I'd love to know what part resonates with you most personally. Has there been a moment in your life when something inexplicable happened that changed everything? Type messenger in the comments followed by one word that describes your unexplainable moment. Your experiences matter, and sharing them might bring clarity to someone else watching this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, join our community. This taxi ride is just beginning, and I promise the destination will be worth it. Every subscription helps these stories reach those who need them most. I had 1,000 questions racing through my mind. How could he know about Sophia? How could he predict her healing with such specificity? Why wait 10 years to tell the story? But before I could ask any of them, the boy continued. "I know you stopped believing, Giuseppe. You were once devout. But when Sophia was diagnosed, your faith crumbled. You thought God had abandoned you, that prayers were empty words echoing in empty churches. But God never left you. He's been working in ways you couldn't see, preparing for this moment since before Sophia was even born." Tears began streaming down my face, mingling with the raindrops that had soaked into my clothes when he entered the car. He was right. I had been a man of deep faith once. I had attended Mass every Sunday, volunteered at the church, even considered becoming a deacon. But when the doctors showed us the scans of the tumor growing in my precious daughter's brain, something broke inside me. How could a loving God allow such suffering for an innocent 11-year-old girl who had never harmed anyone? I had stopped praying, stopped attending church, stopped believing, while my wife's faith only grew stronger. "You don't need to cry, Giuseppe," the boy said kindly. "God understands your anger, your doubt. Those feelings are as human as love itself. But soon, you'll understand that everything, even suffering, has purpose. Even your doubts were part of the journey you needed to take." As we drove through the storm, the boy began telling me things no stranger could possibly know. He described the small birthmark behind Sophia's left ear in the shape of a crescent moon. He knew about the wooden music box I had carved for her when she was 5, the one that played Ave Maria when opened. He knew about the private nickname I called her that no one else used, my little astronaut. Because of her fascination with stars, each revelation sent shocks through my system, confirming that whatever was happening was beyond normal explanation. Then he told me to pull over. We were on a narrow street I didn't immediately recognize, near an old church I had never visited. The rain had momentarily subsided, though lightning still flickered in the distance. "This is where I get out," he said, gathering his backpack. "Wait," I protested, suddenly desperate for him not to leave. "You haven't told me who you are or how you know these things. At least give me your name, a way to contact you after, if what you say comes true." The boy smiled that ancient smile again. "My name isn't important, but if it helps you to have one, you can call me Carlo." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small wooden rosary. "Take this. It belongs with Sophia now." I accepted the rosary with trembling hands. It was simple but beautiful, the wood dark and polished from use, the crucifix slightly worn at the edges. "One more thing, Giuseppe," he said, his hand on the door handle. "When Sophia is healed, the doctors will want to study her case. They'll call it spontaneous remission or a misdiagnosis. Let them. The truth is for you to know and eventually share. And watch for the signs. White butterflies will appear when you least expect them. That's how you'll know I'm still with you." Before I could respond, he opened the door and stepped out into the night. I called after him, concerned about him being alone in such weather. But when I looked out the window, he was already gone. Not walking away, not running into a building, simply gone, as if he'd vanished into the thin air. I jumped out of my taxi, looking in all directions, but the street was completely empty. There was nowhere he could have gone so quickly, no doorway he could have entered in those few seconds. Confused and shaken, I got back into my taxi and noticed something on the seat where the boy had been sitting, a small puddle of water from his wet clothes, and beside it, a single white feather that certainly hadn't been there before. I picked it up, turning it over in my fingers. It was impossibly soft and seemed to emit a faint, barely perceptible light of its own. The next 10 days were a blur of emotion and anticipation. I didn't tell Marcella or anyone else about my strange passenger. Part of me wondered if I had imagined the entire encounter, if the stress of Sophia's illness had finally broken something in my mind. But the rosary was real, the feather was real, and the boy had known things no stranger could possibly know. As October 27th approached, I found myself torn between hope and fear. What if nothing happened? What if the boy had been some cruel prankster with an elaborate scheme to torment a desperate father? Or worse, what if he had been a hallucination, evidence that I was losing my grip on reality? Sophia had been declining rapidly. The tumor was pressing on critical areas of her brain, causing increasingly severe headaches, vision problems, and weakness in her right arm and leg. The doctors had moved her into palliative care, focusing only on keeping her comfortable in what they believed were her final weeks. Marcella spent hours by her bedside, praying the rosary and reading stories to her, her faith unshakable despite everything. I took time off from driving my taxi, wanting to spend every possible moment with my daughter, memorizing every detail of her face, her laugh, her voice, terrified of forgetting even the smallest thing about her after she was gone. On the morning of October 27th, I woke early, my heart pounding with a strange mixture of dread and anticipation. It was 7:30 a.m., less than 2 hours until the time the mysterious boy had predicted. Marcella had fallen asleep in the chair beside Sophia's hospital bed, her rosary still clutched in her hand. Sophia herself was sleeping peacefully for the first time in days, the pain medications finally providing some relief. I sat by the window, watching the sunrise paint the Milan skyline in shades of gold and pink. As the light grew stronger, I noticed something strange on the windowsill outside, a white butterfly, its wings opening and closing slowly. In late October in northern Italy, butterflies were extremely rare. As I watched, a second one joined it, then a third. Soon, there were 7 white butterflies perched on the window ledge, their wings moving in perfect synchronization, like they were breathing together. The boy's words echoed in my mind. "Watch for the signs. White butterflies will appear when you least expect them. That's how you'll know I'm still with you." At precisely 9:15 a.m., Sophia woke up. Her eyes, which had been dull with pain for months, were suddenly clear and alert. She looked at me and smiled, a real smile, not the brave face she had been putting on for our benefit. "Papa," she said, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks, "the headache is gone. I'm hungry." Marcella stirred at the sound of our daughter's voice. She looked between Sophia and me, confusion and hope battling on her face. Before any of us could say more, the room was suddenly filled with a sweet aroma, like vanilla mixed with something I couldn't quite identify. It was subtle but unmistakable, appearing from nowhere. At that exact moment, the wall clock in Sophia's hospital room stopped at 9:17 a.m., though the second hand continued to tick in place, never advancing to 9:18. A nurse entered to check Sophia's vital signs, as she did every 2 hours. Her routine examination quickly turned into confused double-checking of her instruments. Sophia's temperature was perfectly normal for the first time in weeks. Her blood pressure, her heart rate, her oxygen levels, all exactly as they should be for a healthy 11-year-old girl. "This is unusual," the nurse said, her professional composure slipping. "I'll get the doctor." What followed was a flurry of tests, examinations, and increasingly baffled medical professionals. Sophia's neurosurgeon, Dr. Esposito, ordered an immediate MRI. 2 hours later, he stood before us, holding scans that he couldn't reconcile with the previous images of Sophia's brain. "I don't understand this," he said, his voice a mixture of professional detachment and underlying awe. "The tumor is gone, not shrinking, not responding to treatment, completely gone. There's not even scar tissue where it was. If I didn't have her previous scans in front of me, I would say this child never had a tumor at all." Brothers and sisters, the impossible had happened exactly as foretold. At 9:17 a.m. on October 27, 2013, my daughter Sophia was completely, inexplicably healed. The inoperable tumor that had been killing her vanished without a trace, leaving bewildered doctors and a medical mystery that would eventually be published in international journals under the heading "Spontaneous Complete Regression of Pediatric Diffuse Intrinsic Pontine Glioma, Case Study and Review of Literature." But I knew what had really happened. I knew about the boy in my taxi, the boy who called himself Carlo, who knew things no stranger could know, and who disappeared without a trace into the rainy night, leaving behind only a feather and a wooden rosary. The boy who looked exactly like Carlo Acutis, whose cause for beatification would officially begin just months later. In the days following Sophia's miraculous healing, strange things continued to happen. White butterflies appeared wherever we went, on our balcony, in the hospital corridor during Sophia's final checkup, on the windshield of my taxi. Once, remarkably, 7 butterflies formed a perfect circle on our dining room table during Sunday lunch. Each appearance was accompanied by that same sweet aroma I had detected in the hospital room. Sophia recovered with astonishing speed. Within 2 weeks, she was back at school. Within a month, there was no evidence she had ever been ill, except for the medical records documenting her case and the lingering bewilderment of her doctors. Dr. Esposito eventually published a paper about her case, attributing the recovery to unknown mechanisms of spontaneous tumor regression, possibly triggered by immune system activation. He never mentioned miracles, never suggested divine intervention. But sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, I caught him making the sign of the cross when Sophia's name came up in conversation. Our lives changed in other ways too. I returned to the church, my faith restored and transformed by what I had witnessed. Marcella, whose faith had never wavered, approached her devotion with renewed joy. We moved to a small house near the church where the boy had exited my taxi, a place I eventually recognized as the Church of San Lorenzo. We discovered that Carlo Acutis had visited this church during his trips to Milan, and his mother still occasionally attended services there. As for the rosary the boy had given me, we gave it to Sophia as he had instructed. She kept it by her bedside, and though we never told her about my mysterious passenger honoring his request to wait 10 years, she developed a spontaneous devotion to Carlo Acutis, placing his picture beside her bed without knowing his connection to her healing. The years passed. Sophia grew from a joyful child into a compassionate young woman. She graduated at the top of her class and decided to study medicine, inspired by her own experience as a patient. I continued driving my taxi, but I was different now, more attentive to my passengers, more open to their stories, always wondering if the next person to enter my car might be another messenger. Throughout these years, I kept my promise. I told no one except Marcella about the boy in my taxi. I waited, counting the days until October 27, 2023, exactly 10 years after Sophia's healing, when I would finally be free to share this testimony. And now, brothers and sisters, that day has come. I sit before you, Giuseppe Ricci, no longer a doubter but a witness, a simple taxi driver who encountered someone beyond explanation. I don't know if the boy in my taxi was truly Carlo Acutis in some miraculous manifestation, or an angel taking his form, or something else entirely. What I know is this: he knew the impossible. He predicted the miraculous, and everything happened exactly as he said it would. Sophia is now 21 years old, healthy and brilliant, in her 3rd year of medical school. The doctors who treated her still have no scientific explanation for her recovery. Her case has been included in medical textbooks as an example of the limitations of our understanding of disease progression, and white butterflies still appear in our lives at pivotal moments. When Sophia was accepted to university, on the anniversary of her healing each year, and most recently yesterday, as I prepared to record this testimony. Brothers and sisters, if you're watching this second part, it's because something in my story resonated with you, because perhaps you too are waiting for a miracle, or because you've witnessed something you cannot explain. What happened to my family is not just our story. It's an invitation to recognize that there is more to this world than what science can measure, more than what reason can comprehend. After Sophia's healing, I began researching Carlo Acutis more deeply. I learned that before his death from leukemia in 2006, he had created a website documenting Eucharistic miracles around the world. I discovered that many people reported receiving extraordinary help after praying for his intercession, and I found that numerous healings had been attributed to him, healings that, like Sophia's, defied medical explanation. Most strikingly, I learned that Carlo had once told his mother something that sent chills down my spine when I read it. "I'm not going to grow old," he had said. I'll die young, but I will have lived my life fully. It was as if he knew what was coming, just as the boy in my taxi had known about Sophia. 2 years after Sophia's healing, something even more extraordinary happened. I was driving a passenger to Malpensa Airport, taking the route past the church of San Lorenzo, when I noticed a woman walking slowly along the sidewalk. Something about her seemed familiar, so I glanced in my rearview mirror as we passed. Our eyes met briefly, and with a shock of recognition, I realized it was Carlo Acutis' mother, Antonia. After dropping off my passenger, I returned to the church and found her still there, lighting a candle. Gathering my courage, I approached and introduced myself. We spoke for nearly an hour, and though I didn't tell her about the boy in my taxi, still honoring his request to wait, I did mention Sophia's healing and our family's devotion to her son. What she told me next confirmed everything I had come to believe. Carlo always said his mission would continue after his death, she explained. He told me once, "Mama, I'll be more useful to people after I die than while I'm alive." At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. Now I do. She described how Carlo had demonstrated an extraordinary connection to the supernatural from a young age, how he could sense when people were suffering, how he seemed to know things he couldn't possibly know. Once, she said, he told me to call a friend I hadn't spoken to in months, saying she needed help immediately. When I called, I discovered she had just received a terrible diagnosis and was considering taking her own life. How could he have known? But that was Carlo, always somehow connected to a reality beyond what we can see. As we parted, she pressed something into my hand, a small medal bearing Carlo's image. "Keep this with you," she said. "Carlo has a way of making his presence known when it's needed most." That medal has been in my taxi ever since, fastened to the sun visor above my seat. And on 3 separate occasions over the years, passengers have commented on a nice young man sitting in my back seat when there was no one there, each time during drives with people who, I later learned, were facing life-threatening illnesses or profound spiritual crises. Brothers and sisters, I cannot prove what happened in my taxi that stormy night 10 years ago. I cannot offer scientific evidence that the boy who knew about Sophia's tumor and predicted her healing was somehow Carlo Acutis, reaching across the boundary between this world and the next. What I can offer is my testimony, my witness, my truth. And I invite you to consider, what if the boundaries between heaven and earth are thinner than we think? What if those who have passed beyond our sight are not as far away as they seem? What if miracles still happen, not as violations of natural law, but as glimpses of a deeper reality that our science has yet to comprehend? Since the night of my encounter, I've spoken with dozens of people who have had similar experiences. Doctors who have witnessed medical impossibilities, parents who have seen their children healed against all odds, ordinary men and women who have received messages from beyond that later proved prophetic. Most keep these experiences private, fearing ridicule or disbelief. But together, their testimonies weave a tapestry of wonder that suggests our materialistic understanding of the universe is incomplete at best. I don't ask you to abandon reason or critical thinking. I ask only that you keep your heart open to possibilities beyond the boundaries of current understanding. Because miracles don't always announce themselves with thunder and lightning. Sometimes they arrive quietly, in the back seat of a taxi, on a rainy night in Milan, in the form of a teenager with knowing eyes and impossible knowledge. Before concluding, I want to share one final detail that I've kept to myself until now. The small wooden rosary that the boy gave me for Sophia had an unusual feature I didn't notice until days later, carved into the back of the crucifix, in tiny letters barely visible to the naked eye, were the initials CA and a date, 10/12/06, the date of Carlo Acutis' death. When Sophia turned 18, We finally told her the complete story of her healing. We showed her the rosary with its hidden inscription, the white feather I had preserved in a small frame, and the medal Carlo's mother had given me. Her reaction surprised us. Instead of disbelief or shock, she nodded calmly, as if confirming something she had known all along. "I felt him watching over me," she said simply. "Sometimes when I'm studying late at night for my medical exams, I smell vanilla and know I'm not alone. Once, when I was considering dropping out of the pre-med program because it was too difficult, I found a white feather on my textbook. I knew then I had to continue." She paused, then added something that brought tears to my eyes. "The night before you told me this story, I had a dream. A teenage boy in a blue jacket told me that my healing wasn't just for me. It was to give me the chance to heal others. He said I would become a doctor who understands that science and faith are not enemies, but partners in comprehending the full reality of human existence. When I woke up, there was a white butterfly on my window. Now, as I fulfill my promise to share this testimony exactly 10 years after the miracle, I wonder who needed to hear it. Perhaps it's you, watching right now, facing your own impossible situation, your own inoperable tumor, your own crisis of faith. Perhaps, like the teen who appeared in my taxi, something larger than all of us has orchestrated this moment of connection between your story and mine. If there's one message I believe the boy, Carlo, wanted me to share, it's this: no situation is truly hopeless. No scientific certainty is absolute. No prayer goes unheard. And sometimes, when we least expect it, heaven breaks through the barriers we think separate us from the divine, reminding us that we are never truly alone. I ask only that you receive this story with an open heart. Whether you call what happened a miracle, a mystery, or seek some other explanation, know that it transformed our lives, not just through Sophia's physical healing, but through the spiritual awakening it initiated in all of us. And perhaps, in some small way, it might transform yours as well. I want to thank each of you for journeying with me through this testimony. If it touched your heart or awakened something within you, please consider subscribing to Miraculous Encounters. Our community is dedicated to sharing authentic stories of the extraordinary breaking into ordinary lives, not to promote superstition, but to nurture hope and expand our understanding of what's possible. What was your favorite part of this testimony? The mysterious passenger, Sophia's healing, the white butterflies? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've ever experienced something that defies logical explanation, a healing, a message, a presence, I encourage you to share that too. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember that miracles aren't just events from ancient texts or distant legends. They continue to occur in taxicabs and hospital rooms, in ordinary moments transformed by extraordinary grace. Keep your eyes open, your heart receptive, and perhaps you too will glimpse the thin places where heaven touches earth. God bless you abundantly, and may Carlo Acutis intercede for all of us in our moments of greatest need. Thank you for listening to the testimony I've kept silent for exactly 10 years. Today, my promise is fulfilled, but I believe our story is just beginning.